far out in the deep corners of space, something terrible returned. The sky above Colony 7, a peaceful human outpost, suddenly darkened as massive alien ships appeared without warning. These were not ordinary ships. They were monstrous, black, and alive, with sharp edges that looked like teeth and wings that buzzed like giant insects. These were the ships of the Voran Swarm, a terrifying alien race that had attacked humanity years ago, leaving only destruction behind. People screamed as alerts rang out across the colony. Earth's command centers lit up with red warnings. They had feared this day would come, and now it was here. At the head of the alien fleet stood Queen Zael Thura, the powerful and cruel, ruler of the Voran. She watched the human messages flood her screen. Calls for help, military orders, and news reports full of fear. But then, her eyes locked on one video. Her wings twitched, her dark claws dug into the arm of her throne, and her breathing grew sharp. On the screen was the face of a human man she had believed to be dead for 6 long years. That man was Captain Jace Thorn. Her thoughts raced with hate, confusion, and disbelief. He had once nearly destroyed her swarm. He had killed her brother during the last Great War. She had sworn he died in the fire that consumed his ship. Yet here he was, alive, and daring to stand against her again. Meanwhile, on the human battlecruiser HSS Revenant, Jace Thorn stared at the live feed of the alien fleet. His face was scarred from old battles, and one of his eyes glowed, replaced with cybertech after the last war. He looked tired, but unbroken. Around him, commanders barked orders and screens flashed with updates. The Voran were burning through, outposts at a terrifying speed. Jace turned to Commander Lyra Vance, one of Earth's top pilots and his closest friend. She watched him with worry. "She's coming for you," Lyra said quietly. "She won't stop this time." Jace simply nodded. "Then I won't stop either." Across the galaxy, human forces tried to hold the line. Colonies sent desperate signals as Voran forces tore through defenses. Their soldiers were like monsters, huge, armored, and fast. Nothing seemed to stop them. One by one, outposts went silent. The galaxy watched as humanity faced the storm alone. But this time, humanity was ready. Jace stepped in front of a camera and sent out a message to every human colony, every space station, every ship. "We stand together," he said firmly. "We don't just fight for Earth. We fight for every world that believes in freedom." Across the stars, the message spread. Miners dropped their tools and picked up weapons. Retired soldiers climbed into old mechs. Civilians trained in underground bunkers. Earth had changed since the last war. They were stronger, faster, smarter. And they had one thing the Voran could never understand: hope. The old stories of Jace Thorn had become legend. Now, seeing him alive lit a fire in people's hearts. One colony wrote on its walls, "If Jace Thorn fights, we fight too." The line was drawn. The swarm was coming. But this time, humanity was ready to answer, and they would fight with everything they had. The war exploded across the stars. Human ships launched from hidden bases, from moons, and even from broken asteroids turned into fortresses. Jace Thorn led the charge in the HSS Revenant, a massive black and silver warship built for speed and firepower. Its engines roared like thunder as it tore through space, its cannons lighting up the void. The Voran swarm attacked in waves, living ships with jaws, tentacles, and acid fire. But humanity fought back harder than ever before. Captain Jace didn't just command with skill, he inspired. When people saw his ship, they didn't retreat. They pushed forward. Every battle he fought reminded the Voran that humans did not kneel, not even before queens. Still, the cost was high. Ships were lost. Brave men and women died screaming into the dark. On the second moon of Kelmar, Jace and his team led a ground strike to save trapped civilians. Voran beasts crawled over buildings and broke through steel walls. The air was thick with smoke and blood. Lyra flew in with her fighter squad, blasting holes through the alien lines, but they just kept coming. Jace fought on foot, wielding a heavy plasma rifle and a blade made from Voran bone, the same one he took after killing the Queen's brother. It was a message. And when Zael Thura saw that bone blade through her deep space cameras, she screamed. She remembered that weapon. She remembered her brother's death. She remembered Jace's face, cold, fearless, and she lost control. Her swarm, usually calm and organized, began to rush forward without strategy. She wanted Jace's head. Now. But Jace was already planning something bigger. He gathered Earth's top minds, soldiers and engineers. They needed a way to hit the Voran where it hurt, not just in battles, but in their core. Jace knew where the Queen kept her brood world, hidden in the shadows of a dying star, far beyond mapped space. That's where the eggs were, the future of the swarm. If they destroyed it, the war could end. The mission was nearly impossible. No human had ever made it that deep into Voran space. But Jace looked at the map, then looked at his team and said, "We've come back from worse." The plan was dangerous. They had to break through 3 Voran fleets, fly through a collapsing nebula, and land near the Queen's temple fortress. As the mission began, Lyra flew ahead in a stealth ship, scouting paths and laying down signal jammers. Jace followed with a hand-picked strike force, pilots, engineers, marines, even a few alien allies from past battles. The Vorans sensed the danger too late. By the time Zael Thura realized what was happening, Jace had already entered her world. The sky above the brood world turned red as human warships broke through the clouds. The Queen screamed in fury, her rage echoing across her hive. Inside her palace, Jace and his team fought through endless halls filled with monsters. The walls breathed. The floors pulsed like veins. It felt like walking through the belly of a beast. One by one, soldiers fell. The Queen's elite guards, creatures twice as tall as a man, armored in bone and fire, blocked their way. But Jace kept going. He lost friends, he got wounded. But nothing stopped him. When he finally reached the heart of the brood chamber, he paused. Thousands of glowing eggs surrounded him. And in the center, standing tall and furious, was Zael Thura herself. Her wings opened wide, her eyes burned with hate. She screamed, his name, not as a title, not as a soldier. She screamed it like a curse, and the final battle began. The final battle between Jace Thorn and Queen Zael Thura shook the brood world to its core. Inside the giant egg chamber, glowing light bounced off the curved, living walls as the Queen stepped forward, her tall, insect-like frame towering over. "Jace!" Her voice hissed through the air like boiling steam. "You should have stayed dead, human." But Jace only gripped his blade tighter, eyes locked on her, blood dripping from a cut above his brow. "You should have stayed scared." Then, without another word, they charged. She moved like lightning, claws sharp as swords, tail whipping with deadly speed. Jace dodged, rolled, and struck back with both plasma and steel, each hit lighting up the dark room in flashes of fire and pain. Her guards tried to join the fight, but Lyra and the remaining strike team blasted their way through, holding them off as the Queen and Jace fought alone in the heart of the swarm. The Queen's strength was monstrous. She slammed Jace into a wall, cracked the floor with her roar, and filled the air with venom. But Jace had something she didn't. Every memory of the people who died because of her. Every scream from burning colonies. Every name he carried like a weight on his heart. He fought not just to win, but to end it, for good. Blow after blow, his armor cracked, his blade broke, and still he stood. The Queen shrieked and threw him across the chamber, thinking he was finished. But Jace reached into his pack and pulled out the last hope, an explosive core made from Voron biotech, something only he could plant and activate. As she rushed forward for the final strike, he slid beneath her, jammed the device deep into the floor near the egg clusters, and turned to face her once more. Zaelthura realized too late what he had done. She screamed in pure rage and dove at him, claws first, just as Lyra flew her ship through the broken chamber wall. She fired a blast that threw the Queen off balance. Jace leapt toward the edge of the platform as Lyra reached out with one hand. He grabbed it just as the chamber exploded behind them. Fire, dust, and broken eggs filled the air. The Queen's body was swallowed in the blast, her scream fading as the ceiling fell. The team barely made it out, flying through the crumbling brood world as it tore itself apart. Outside, human ships cheered. They had watched from orbit as the world cracked open like a dying star. The swarm screamed across the stars as their queen vanished in flame. Back on Earth, weeks later, people gathered across cities and colonies. Statues were built, names were remembered. The war was over, not because humans had better weapons, but because they had something the swarm never had: courage, unity, and a will that could not be broken. Jace stood in silence at the edge of a cliff, watching the sun rise over New Eden Colony. He had survived, but many had not. Lyra walked up beside him, a soft smile on her face. "They're calling you a hero again," she said. He didn't answer. He just watched the light touch the horizon. "We're still here," he said quietly. "That's all that matters." And across the galaxy, people whispered the story of a man who faced the Queen of Monsters with fire in his heart and brought an end to the terror. Ships now carried his name. Children learned his tale. And even in the deepest parts of space, where fear once ruled, the Voron were no longer the hunters. Humanity had earned its place, not through fear, not through surrender, but through the fight they refused to lose.